tables down here, and we're talking about and it's like you just keep going
Right.
3 weeks.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right.
And it would bring people in who were going to shop and
Right.
do everything else.
Right.
So not
Right. I'd rather have an office building on that side rather than on the library parking lot side. And I think Wally's kind of pushing hard for an office building on the library parking lot side. I'd rather not give that up until it's absolutely necessary. So I think we're waiting for ZS Associates to finish. They're the big player in town.
just say, are you information-wise? What does it
Oh,
say?
that's a good idea.
It's probably a land trust.
Yeah.
And that's why you should go to Joe Planning and just say, can we just sit down for coffee?
Right.
Because you are the first one.
Right.
We just have, bygones are bygones.
Right.
And
Right.
he owns a business here in Evanston.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. Thanks.
big meeting tonight. What's everybody here over?
Down there. Who's next to you? Who's sitting next to you here? No, yeah, no, right here, right here. On this, yeah. Yeah, who's there? Okay, I'll move there.
Yeah.
Phone call?
Yeah.
You ready?
Before we get started, if you'd like to speak tonight on one of the agenda items, will you please make sure that you sign in the back of the room? Thank you.
Hello, we're ready. Thank you, sir.
Do I need to open it? Good evening, and welcome to the May 6, 2013 Human Services meeting. I'd like to declare quorum. We have 28 speakers signed up on the list this evening, and as I look through it, a majority of the residents that are here would like to speak to the topic of pivot. What I'd like to do is, just so we have an opportunity to hear everyone, is to reduce the public comments time to 1 minute and 15 minutes. If not, we'll be here for 90 minutes. Or I don't want to make any assumptions that they're going to be repeat comments, but if there are people that came as a group and you'd like to work together to nominate a spokesperson to help us get through this, then I would like to offer that option. Are there any other opinions from the committee?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just had a Rules Committee meeting where we talked about committees as a place really that's our first line of dialogue with the community. And I think cutting folks down to 1 minute really isn't what we want to do. And everyone's here tonight for us to listen to them. And I would hope that a minimum of 3 minutes, which is time that we've used in other committees, would be okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm sure that
Mike.
for the reminder. I'm sure that our the folks here tonight would also be considerate, and if they've already heard what they want to say, or if there's someone who wants to stand and say, I speak for these number of people, that's very effective advocacy, I can say. And it's also effective if you've already heard what you wanted to say, and just either defer your time or say it's already been said, thank you, and that's also effective advocacy. So it all counts. You're all here, and the more we can encourage civil conversation about any of our agenda items tonight in a way that makes it also efficient so that everyone can be heard as best as possible, I think the committee and the agenda items will be well served.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. 3 minutes, and I will call the first speaker. Please forgive me if I'm... pardon me.
Order.
Yes.
Are we going to hear the speakers by agenda item? Please, that would be my recommendation, that we hear by agenda item, so that if there are non-agenda items, we'll take those comments now.
All right.
But other than that, we'll have to wait for the speakers for the agenda items.
Okay. Is everyone all right with that? All right. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from the March 4th meeting.
Move approval.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, we'll have citizen comments. For non-agenda items. There's no one. No, everyone's signed.
Okay. Then can proceed then.
All right. I'll call the first name and we'll move through the list. Michael. I'm sorry. What's that?
You do your agenda.
Right. Okay. H1, review of police complaints.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, please.
A couple things occurred to me, Commander Davis, when I was reading through. Commander, am I correct?
Yes.
That's so good. And when I was reading through this, I was especially noted the opportunity for residents to participate in a ride-along with our Evanston police to really understand what happens in a shift in a 3-hour window of time in one of our patrol cars. I know that participants in Leadership Evanston do this. You and I are both graduates of Leadership Evanston.
Exactly.
And I thought it was, for me, I think I've done 3 ride-alongs, and each one of them I learned something, not only that our police officers have a second set of eyes in the back of their head, but just of the challenges in a 3-hour window when I was doing the ride-along. And I wondered if the ride-alongs are available as an opportunity to others who don't do the Citizen Police Academy, don't do Leadership Evanston?
Yes, they are. We have interns from Northwestern that participate in that program, and citizens can call and ask. We probably do a background check, so if you're going to do something like that, know that you're going to be scrutinized. But yes, we welcome everyone. And since you brought it up, I would welcome all of you, would totally invite everyone on the board here to participate in our Citizens Police Academy.
Thank you,
Please.
Candace, and I highly recommend it. It's eye-opening, and I don't know, but our Citizens Police Academy probably begins
In August this year.
in August is the next class.
Yes.
So if you're interested, it's a great opportunity as well.
I had no questions on any of
Questions?
these.
Do we need a motion then to approve?
I motion to accept the report.
Second.
So, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Pass. Thank you. Item H2, Assessor Bonnie Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Bonnie Wilson, Evanston Township Assessor, and I'm giving you an update on this month's report. The 2013 appeal session to the County Assessor's Office is complete. After re-reviews, just about 50% of the 1,000 properties that filed appeals through my office had decreases of their 2013 proposed assessments, excluding condos and townhome communities. Just over 60% of residents had a decrease of their property assessment. The Cook County Board of Review has informed me that the 2013 appeal session will not start until August at the earliest. I urge our property taxpayers to contact my office during the last week of July for more information on when appeals can be filed on Evanston properties. I want to remind everyone that any change to your 2013 assessment does not take effect until the tax bill payable in the summer of 2014. According to county officials, the 2012 second installment property tax bills are going to be mailed on time again this year, and state law requires that Cook County taxes are to be collected on March 1st and August 1st annually. In April, 5 taxpayers received corrections of past property tax bills for missed exemptions totaling over $4,914. And during the 2012-2013 fiscal year that ended on March 31st, my office helped return over $421,531 to taxpayers. I urge all taxpayers to contact my office if they feel they may have missed any exemption to their property taxes. We can still help correct as far back as 2008. And there is no need to pay an attorney to do this. This is what you pay. This is what your levy is on your tax bill, which is very small. So I hope you use our offices. The Evanston Township Assessor's Office is located at 846 Dodge, near the corner of Dodge and Main. We are open Monday through Friday between 8:30 and 5 o'clock, and our phone number is 847-332-2465. That's 847-332-2465, and I encourage you to call to make an appointment to come in if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion to accept the
Yeah,
report.
motion to accept. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Items for consideration, Township of Evanston, April 2013 monthly bills.
I move approval of Township's monthly bills for April 2013.
Second.
Second. Any questions, comments?
Every time I look at the bills, I wonder, didn't we commission an operational audit of the township, and wondered where it was. So maybe by our next meeting,
Okay.
we'll have some feedback on the operational audit. Thank you.
You want to come and speak? Do you mind coming to the mic?
The next meeting.
Okay.
Assessor Wilson says next meeting. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or comments? So by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving along to HH2, the ordinance 8013 amending the Title II, Chapter 3 of the City Code to reflect changes of the Commission of Aging.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
HH3, the 3-year extension for Northwestern football parking on the Evanston Wilmette Golf Course during the home football game, season 2013, 2014, and 2015.
I move approval.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded.
If I may, Given the extremely poor weather in March, where last year the Golf Association probably realized over $4,000 in greens fees, the revenue from the football game parking 7 games this fall will be important to their budget this year. And the great thing about the 3 holes where the tailgating is allowed is that those are the 3 holes controlled by Northwestern University Athletics to their season ticket holders. So you have to have a season ticket pass to get on that fairway, and if you violate any of the rules, they can yank your pass and you no longer have parking privileges. So the university can not only control issuance of the passes, but they can also communicate with each one of those parkers about the rules, about timing of the game, about traffic issues. So it's worked with really relatively few complaints pretty well for the last 3 years. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. HH4, review of a draft resolution 27R13 authoring the City of Evanston to establish a moratorium on the use of unregulated drone technology.
This is mine, and I think there will be some citizen comment on this. I'm really hoping. This came to me from a group of residents who, like many of us, are concerned about the lack of regulation for these unmanned aerial systems or the drone technology. They're being used for surveillance, for public safety issues, for I think the chief can probably help me out with all the ways in which the drone technology is being used. The Federal Aviation Administration does have some regulations about the sending up of drones into our airspace, but I think the citizens group is concerned about the use of drones in this case for surveillance, for the gathering of information. I don't want to, of course, hamstring our police department, and have had discussions with Chief Rich Eddington about whether and how our police department would use drone technology. And it seems as if, and Chief can correct me, that we're still a ways off. Other police departments may be using the technology, but they don't live in the dense urban area that we do. And in the meantime, our state senator, Daniel Biss, has proposed and passed out of the House, the Illinois Senate, legislation, you'll see that in your packet, that looks to take the first good step towards regulating the implementation of drone technology. So if you don't mind hearing from a few residents about this, that would be great, and then perhaps we can then send it up to council.
Okay. I have two residents that are signed up. First, Mr. Michael Weston, followed by Marsha Bernstein. Is there anyone else here that's... Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Weston. I live at 3231 Park Place in Evanston. Lived in Evanston for 40 years, and so I think I almost qualify as an Evanstonian now by some measures. I'm here to register briefly my support for the resolution. I know it may soon be preempted by state or federal legislation, but the lessons of the recent past show us that in matters particularly of defense, security, and law enforcement, things can happen without the general public becoming aware of them. I think it's important that the city register its view that Evanston is not a place for such things to occur. I want to thank Alderman Grover for sponsoring the resolution, and I urge the committee to support it and the council to adopt it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Marsha Bernstein.
Hi, I'm Marsha Bernstein. I'm representing myself as well as Chicago Area Peace Action. I live at 1213 Maple in Evanston. As Alderman Grover, and thank you for bringing this to council or to the committee, mentioned, Senator Biss does have a bill. It's currently stuck in committee in the House, on the House side in the Rules Committee. If it doesn't get out of Rules by the end of May, he'll have to start all over. But we also think that the bill that he has presented is inadequate. It doesn't deal with things like weaponization of drones that I know Chief Eddington opposes himself. The other thing that we have to consider is, as a precedent, a lot of communities are looking to see what a progressive community like Evanston is going to do with this particular issue. And we want to be on the forefront. We want to be the first in Illinois to say, yeah, no, these are really not a great idea. So we would like to ask the committee to bring it to the full council and to support it. There was one more point that I was going to make, and now, of course, I can't remember it. So.
Mrs. Bernstein, other communities that have implemented a resolution such as this?
There are, and I think that Ms. Fonda is going to speak to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Maybe I'll remember what it was that Marcia was going to say. I'm DeKel Fonda, and I'm a 30-year resident of Evanston, and I'm representing the North Shore Coalition for Peace, Justice, and the Environment. And I thank you, Alderwoman Grover, for introducing this resolution, and I hope that this committee will pass it on to Council. The technology on unmanned aerial surveillance systems or drones is moving so quickly, and it's way ahead of regulations. The federal government nor the state have at this point regulated this technology. So what I think we're asking here is to just slow down. I think it's pretty clear that there will be drones in our airspace in the next 10 years, probably before that. In fact, the FAA will have things regulated, they say, by 2015, and they predict that by 2018 we may see 7,500 or more of these little bits of technology in our airspace. So it's pretty clear that we need regulation, but we don't have it right now. So in answer to your question, we're on the cutting edge in Evanston, and there are cities that are many cities that are looking at doing the same thing that we're talking about here tonight. And in fact, we're in conversation with several of the people in Madison, Wisconsin, Boulder, Colorado, Seattle, Syracuse, New York, and probably 10 other states that we're not in conversation with, or cities that have similar resolutions. And I think that points to the fact that we're all aware that we need regulation. We need to slow down. There are 3 states, in fact, that have currently passed proposals like Daniel Biss's, and we're still waiting to see what happens in Illinois. But in Virginia, Florida, and Idaho, they now have state regulations. And the only other cities that have passed them are Charlottesville, Virginia, and a small town outside of Minneapolis called St. Bonifacius. And they have passed resolutions. But as I say, there are places like Mount Vernon, Illinois, Berkeley, California, Fort Wayne, Indiana, that are looking at these, and they're talking to us. They're looking to see what Evanston does with this. So the other point I want to make is that this is not a left or a right issue. In fact, it's a very interesting issue for those of us in the activist community, because it has brought together old aging hippies with survivalists, and Tea Partiers with the ACLU. So we're all on board with this. It's a very interesting time. So I would urge you, this committee, to pass this on to council, and let's continue the conversation in Evanston. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, a little more background. I did speak with Senator Biss's office today, and he's very supportive of this resolution, and in fact feels it would help his efforts to get his legislation passed in the Illinois Senate, or in the General Assembly. And another government entity, if you can call it that, Associated Student Government, either has passed or will be passing a very similar resolution that we hope to join to this one, and could be then the first kind of joint resolution on an issue coming from Evanston. Chief Eddington, if you would, we're having this discussion in kind of a vacuum without Chief Eddington here, but can you help us understand ways in which law enforcement or public safety uses drones, keeping in mind that we can revisit this resolution and the moratorium, the 2-year moratorium on the implementation of drone technology, should something happen, and if Chief Eddington gives us direction that he's wanting to use this?
Thank you, Alderman, Mr. Chairman, members of the dais. First of all, I want to thank the Peace and Justice Coalition for working as a partner on this topic. They came to me, expressed their concerns, and I'm pleased to say we found many more things we agreed on than disagreed on. In the context of future use of drones, one of the things that I think is a very Evanston example that I can talk about is if we are looking for someone on the lakefront in the water, we can basically do Howard to Wilmette in about 20 minutes with this device versus other more cruder, time-consuming ways. And so there's always the search and rescue option with this type of technology. The concern obviously revolves around privacy issues because of surveillance, and I think what the moratorium does would it give some time to flesh those concerns out, and we can learn from that. Also, in buying any new technology, I'm kind of a fan of not being the first one to try it. Let somebody else get the bugs out so they can do the R&D for Evanston, and we'll just buy one that works if we need one. So I think this is not hampering us in any way at this point in time, and I will keep the council informed and the city manager's office informed. Are there any changes or issues that require immediate attention?
Thank you, Chief, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Chief, and also thank you, Alderman Grover, for your work on this item. Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, Chief, before you go, could I ask could I ask you a question? Could you just explain what a drone looks like?
Well, in the interest of time, I won't. But seriously, this is a term that unfortunately, when you say that word, everybody thinks U.S. Predator, Global Hawk, big Hellfire rockets. We're not talking about that. I think our privacy concerns are much more focused on the less than 25-pound devices that have become affordable and to even an individual purchaser. And so our ability to use a big one is non-existent. Our need to use perhaps a smaller one are possible in the future. So we'd be looking at more like a four-rotor device about the size of the top of this podium is what's realistic for law enforcement in an urban area.
Okay, because the image that's being created is that in 15 years these are going to be flying all over everywhere, and is that what you're anticipating?
It's not what I'm anticipating, Alderman, but one of the a side issue to this, and I made this comment to Alderman Grover earlier, you can control us. Mm-hmm. The chief of police comes to Human Services, I'm at the city council, and you guys tell me what you want after listening to the citizens. Mm-hmm. I'm controllable. Mm-hmm. The issue is, as this cost of technology plummets, individual entities aren't as controllable. And also, I'm sure these aren't going to have license numbers, so if you're doing something you shouldn't do with one of these and it crashes, you're not going to come and say, hey, I'm here to pick up my drone that crashed. You're just going to walk away. Mm-hmm. And so I think the issue of inappropriate use by private individuals is one of the concerns that we'll trip over first, even before we get up to law enforcement usages of these devices. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, in all cases like this, my concern is how does that affect Evanston? Because that's really what it's appropriate for us to be addressing here tonight, not the larger issues of where philosophically we think what position we want to take, but how it affects the Evanston residents. And so I'm very, very interested in hearing what you have to say about this, and on that basis, I'll support it.
In the future, we can certainly...
With your recommendation.
Well, and one of the things that in the future we would look at as a surveillance platform, when we run a burglary surveillance, we're talking about 20 cops, 20 rental cars, hours and hours, and so it's an expensive endeavor. If I cut it down to 2 cops, 2 rental cars, and a drone, we're doing the same thing much less expensively. And that's where the attraction to law enforcement in the future, after the laws, such as the one proposed by the senator, have fleshed out our responsible use of these devices.
So do you see this being used in conjunction with the surveillance cameras that we already have in place?
No, I think that the vast majority of our surveillance cameras are overt. You know they're there. Mm-hmm. It's not a secret. There's that huge white box or that big white truck, and you know they're there. Mm-hmm. This is a more covert application of those, and I think the rules change, the expectation of privacy changes because it is covert, and I think that's where the concern lies.
Right, and I absolutely agree with those who share the concerns about personal privacy. And I would certainly support this in terms of search and rescue, but beyond that, I wouldn't be in favor of it. I just think it is an invasion of privacy.
I understand.
And I think that Alderman Fisk is exactly what Senator Biss's legislation gets to. Maybe what Chief suggested is there needs to be some legislation about requiring identification on drones, or so that you can tie it back to an owner, a user. But that may be a subject for a later time. We're not looking to regulate drones here. We're just looking to have this conversation and to signal to our lawmakers in Washington and in Springfield that this is an important issue and we're paying attention, and here's our statement. It's really just our statement on this. Thank you, Chief, very much.
Thank you again, Alderman. I appreciate your collaboration on this effort along with the Peace and Justice Coalition that got us to this point this evening.
Thank you very much, Peace and Justice Coalition.
Yep. Thank you. Did we already make a motion? Moved and second. All those in favor? All right. Perfect. We'll move it along. Thank you very much again. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right. Next item is HH5 Resolution 8R13, authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment of the lease agreement with Piven Theater Workshop. And I think we have an update from our city manager, Wally Bachowitz.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good evening. There are actually, Mr. Chair, two items regarding the Piven Theater Workshop, and if it would be appropriate, perhaps we could take them together. And what I'd like to do is make some initial comments. We have the chair of the board of Piven here who would like to make a presentation, and perhaps at that point then public comment. Is that your desire, Mr. Chair? Very good. Again, thank you for having us here this evening to talk about the ongoing discussions regarding the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. The City Council first received the public testimony and discussion on a new approach to noise at its meeting on July 11th, 2011, 22 months ago. And I was directed at that time to work with the tenants at Noyes on issues there. I then spent the next 11 months helping to organize a tenants association at Noyes to work on a variety of issues. On February 3rd, 2012, the City Council's Human Services Committee discussed, received public testimony, and recommended to the full City Council that I be authorized to negotiate a long-term lease with the Piven Theater Workshop on the use of the space at Noyes. This was the recommendation that was agreed to after public testimony by the full City Council on February 13th, 2012. On June 4th, 2012, the City Council's Human Services Committee discussed and received public testimony and recommended to the full City Council changes to operation at Noyes, which gave tenants, through a newly created tenants association, greater say in the operation of the center. Updates and public testimony were also given regarding our discussions with Piven. This recommendation was agreed to after public testimony by the full City Council on June 11, 2012. On February 4, 2013, the City Council's Human Services Committee again received an update and heard public testimony on the ongoing discussions with Piven on a proposed lease for additional space at Noyes. The proposed lease with Piven and the future uses at Noyes has been discussed more at public meetings than any other arts issue in the last 3 years at 3 City Council meetings, 4 meetings of this committee, and many meetings of the Tenants Association. The Council's actions in June 2012 allowed for the reinvestment of rent into the center. The City is also committed to move forward with a new roof at the center, and you'll be having a final contract for the roof project before you later this month. And we're also moving forward with new seats at the main theater that's used by the next theater later this year. The City Council has been thoughtful in its over 18 months of discussions about noise and received diverse comments from many tenants and other interested individuals. I'm confident that these efforts bring us here today to the discussion of a proposed lease long-term lease with the Piven Theater Workshop and their investment in the center. As many of you know, I've been the lead staff person on this project for the 22 months since the council first discussed it in July of 2011. I think first and foremost, the people that you see here tonight are here to explain their passion for what happens at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. And I'm very pleased that one of the byproducts that have come from these many months of discussion have been that outpouring of support, not only for the center itself, but for its many tenants who add to the cultural diversity of Evanston. One issue that's also very clear is we don't have enough space for the arts in Evanston. And with these discussions at Noyes, my hope is that we will be able to revitalize and rejuvenate Noyes, and it will be with us for a long period of time. But that's not the end. And there will be additional discussions required by the City Council to make sure that all arts organizations in Evanston have a place they need to be. When we first started these discussions 22 months ago, we talked about a sustainability model for the center, and that sustainability model was largely a financial one. But it was the Piven Theater Workshop that stepped forward and said that they were willing to make an investment to go beyond that, not only to help the building be sustainable from a physical sense, but also be sustainable from an artistic sense. And I think that's, in my opinion, a critical element here is how we move forward as a community to make sure that the Noyes Cultural Arts Center is sustainable not only fiscally so that we have the money needed to maintain the building, but also be sustainable creatively and to make sure that the center is really the centerpiece of the arts community in Evanston for a very long time to come. So I believe that what you have before you is a step in that direction. I would like to introduce the chair of the Piven board, Mr. Joel Freemuth. He is going to give an overview of the agreement that we have been working on, and then, Mr. Chairman, I'll be available for questions as appropriate from the committee after public comment. But thank you for the committee's time this evening, and with that, Mr. Freemuth.
Thank you.
Distinguished Aldermen of the Human Services Committee, hello. My name is Joel Freemuth, and I have the honor of serving as the president of the Piven Theater Workshop. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. We get it, Aldermen. This is a tough conversation. Indeed, progress always is. We are here tonight because despite the opposition to moving forward, we know that when this process is completed, the resulting transformation will revitalize the community, and the Noyes Cultural Arts Center will become the cultural landmark it was always meant to be. I am here to speak to you specifically about Piven's renovation proposal, as well as to inform you why this partnership is worthy of your approval. Prior to clarifying certain points, I'd like to give a little background on the motivation for our organization undertaking this project. Piven has been a part of the Evanston fabric for 42 years. And as a board member, I have seen this organization perform important, life-altering work. The workshop is an organization. Did I do that? The workshop is an organization with a renowned theater training program, a professional theater, and extensive community partnership initiatives. The values and lessons our students receive as part of their time with us are numerous, but they can be boiled down to one salient point. Your voice is unique, and it is important. Piven has been an active and committed participant in the Noyes Cultural Arts Center since its inception in 1975. We serve over 3,000 people each year through our programming and provide $30,000 worth of scholarships. Alumni from the Piven program have gone on to be leaders in their own communities and have been celebrated with prestigious awards such as MacArthur Fellowships, Golden Globes, Emmy and Tony Awards, and Pulitzer Prizes. Our teachers work and teach throughout the Chicagoland area at renowned institutions such as the Chicago High School for the Arts, Northwestern, DePaul, and Columbia, among others. Approximately 2 years ago, when the city of Evanston began to explore alternative solutions to the maintenance of its facilities, Piven began an internal discussion which continues to this day. The issues before us were monumental. In short, we were trying to decide how best to cement our founders' legacies into our organization while also adapting for a vibrant and exciting future. We concluded our primary desire was to seek a permanent, sustainable home that reflects our founders' legacies while supporting our future growth. Given the state of the building, however, and no plans for renovation on the horizon, we created a list of needs for our business and approached the city to form a public-private partnership, as our desire is to remain in Evanston, where we have been for the last 4 decades. Our itemized list was a carefully thought-out document that transformed the space into a vehicle for the implementation of our vision. We negotiated the list over many months. Tireless efforts came from both our own professional and volunteer leadership, as well as that of the city. We have made numerous compromises to move this project forward. This project is not a small undertaking, but neither is our vision for our future. And this is our plan. These plans reflect years of thoughtful planning and conversations with our constituency, have been vetted through a capital campaign study, and represent a thorough space analysis of our programming and administrative needs, as well as demonstrates our wish to create a dynamic space that our community as a whole can use. The Noyes Center is an old elementary school that has been converted, but never purposefully updated. This project will reinforce the basement, clean out any hazardous materials, upgrade the heating, air conditioning, and electrical system. Our discussions have already motivated numerous other improvements outside of the Piven footprint. The city, for example, has reallocated funds to fix the roof, and electrical and seat upgrades in next theater space are already underway. In the basement, tenants directly under Piven will benefit greatly from complementary upgrades, which include a reinforced ceiling free of falling debris, pipes and exposed wiring, central air conditioning, and larger studio spaces. The entire building will benefit from an improved electrical system, which will reduce frequent brown and blackouts, to which we have sadly become accustomed. The first floor will feature a state-of-the-art black box theater with flexible seating, a proper green room, a welcoming lobby and lounge, which by night will serve as a theater lobby and by day will serve as community gathering space currently lacking in the building. Expanded offices will finally house our full and part-time staff, which last year was just under 50 people. The second floor will consist of upgraded classrooms outfitted with seating and lighting, so as to accommodate intimate salon theater performances, in addition to classrooms for our training center. Finally, and on the heels of the Evanston survey recommending the city address the current needs for better facilities, an important part of these negotiations have been the discussion of shared and collaborative space. Outside theater and performing arts companies will have new opportunities to share or rent our facilities, creating a more dynamic center and revitalized neighborhood. For those who have visited Lincoln Square, you are well aware of the transformation Old Town School of Folk Music's exciting facility has brought to that community. Lastly, our space could serve as an exciting venue for various types of events. Perhaps one of the most exciting elements of this agreement is that we will share our space with Fleetwood Jourdain Theater, Evanston's only African-American theater company. We have already begun an exciting collaborative relationship with Tim Rose, the artistic director, with a reading of Gee's Bend in our theater last February. I personally attended that performance and was blown away by the work, and I very much look forward to our next project together. So what does this mean financially to the city of Evanston? And how does this project have a significant return on the city's investment? How does a public-private partnership between Piven and the city create a win-win for the city, for Piven, indeed for the entire community? For the past 2 years, Piven has demonstrated itself to be a strong partner in this process. To date, we have brought to the table a significant team of dedicated professionals who are committed to this vision. And I feel compelled to point out, all have donated their time to help bring this to fruition. The team consists of architects from Hartshorn Plunkett Architecture, an award-winning firm who are leaders in new construction, historic preservation, green sustainable, mixed-use, and renovation projects. Hartshorn Plunkett has brought along with its team leading structural engineers, interior and landscape designers, all committed to work on this project pro bono. Additionally, this project has benefited from pro bono construction oversight and project management from Friedler Construction, a company with expertise in retrofitting community buildings within contracted times and within budget. We have also secured pro bono services from law firm Neil Gerber and Eisenberg and accounting services from Evanston-based Schenker Vallot. This does not even account for the rest of our board members, community members, and their contributions. Excuse me. All told, We estimate nearly $750,000 has already been donated to this project, and we expect that number to increase significantly by the time this project is completed. This is the reason why public-private partnerships work. Our resources can advance a project in which we have a shared interest. The funds, resources, and efficiency which we bring to the table lowers the overall cost of the project, shortens the overall time frame of the project, and generally results in a better outcome with a significantly reduced burden to the taxpayers. In fact, there is a negative tax burden to Evanston's taxpayers on this project. Despite how this project may have been misrepresented, I am here to tell you that this project will result in no less than a $10 million benefit to the city of Evanston. Furthermore, unlike the aspersions cast upon this project, I will lay out for you how we arrived at that number. Not including numerous other factors which will further enhance the value of this project to the city. Under the terms of the agreement before you, the city of Evanston will reap economic benefits from interest on the loan, tax revenue from liquor sales, increased economic activity along the noise corridor, and by retaining the building's improvements. As part of the agreement, the city will loan Piven $2.2 million as part of the estimated overall $3.5 million this project will cost. That loan comes with an interest rate of 2% and a variable rate trigger that can increase as interest rates rise in the future. It should be noted that the interest rate is significantly higher than the return the city is earning on the same fund from which this money will be loaned. The minimum interest Piven will pay over 25 years is approximately $725,000. That is to say, full repayment of the loan is just under $3 million. Under the conditions outlined in the agreement, the workshop will also have a limited ability to sell alcohol. Increased tax revenue, based on conservative estimates, is approximately $10,000 per year, or $250,000 over the period of the loan. Given the theater's increased capacity and desirability as a destination, an increased number of Noise Cultural Center patrons that will frequent the neighboring area businesses will result in an annual benefit of approximately $240,000. This number is calculated using the same methodology the Evans Starts report utilized, which was submitted to the City Council in March 2013. Over the life of the loan, this benefit will bring in another $6 million to Evanston. In total, the City of Evanston will reap nearly $10 million from these factors alone, and I'd like to reiterate that this disregards additional income from the project as a result of Piven's ability to offer additional classes and offerings that further drive traffic to the area. So, on a $2.2 million loan, the interest alone returns 33%. The entire project returns over 350%. That is an annual return of 14.18%. Now, I don't care if we're in a good economy or a bad one. That is a healthy return, and it is a better return than what most investments are going to realize for a municipality. It is clear to us, and hopefully now to you, that the reasons to move forward with this project are numerous, and it is my hope that we have dispelled and clarified any misinformation that may have cast doubts on the viability of this project. The final question of the evening, then, is can Piven do it? And I stand before you as president of the board to say unreservedly, yes. The list of what we've done to plan for this project already is extensive, and to list them would take all night. And I understand there are many more who wish to comment. What I will tell you is that we have a vibrant, committed community made up of dedicated board members, high-quality teachers, superb professional leadership, and unwavering support from members and parents at large. During the last several years of the worst economic landscape since the Depression, we never missed a rent payment, never once asked for a loan. Moreover, we had a cushion that helped see us through the challenging years, and we never once reduced our scholarships to the community. Where our students suffered, we didn't increase that suffering. Finally, I am proud to say that we have emerged from this economic downturn and ended our last fiscal year with a surplus and anticipate this year will be even better. As part of this public-private partnership, we are looking to you, our city's leaders, to join us in a visionary idea. Our city needs to move forward with ideas that advance, rather than create a stagnant arts community. This is an idea that celebrates our community and every unique voice from within. It is an idea that accomplishes everyone's goals. The city has a significantly renovated space that celebrates all of the arts. Piven has a vehicle for implementing its future in the same place it forged its past. And the community fulfills its goal of reinforcing its commitment to move forward. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay. We're going to now have our public comments. As I had mentioned before, there are a large number of speakers. The count is up to 50. And so with 3 minutes, you can all do the math and how long it could potentially take us to get through this. So I ask respectfully two things, that if someone before you has shared the same comments, you can simply yield your time by just saying, I agree with the speaker. In addition to that, I'll ask respectfully that you minimize your applause or negative boos so that we can hear every comment being heard. All right? With that being said, and again, I apologize if I mispronounce someone's name. The first person that we have on this list is Larry Dias. Thank you. Thank you. Please state your name, and if you want, before you speak, sir, your name and address, and I'm going to call the next 5 speakers just to line up behind Mr. Diasti. Did I pronounce it? Distasti. Thank you very much. Gary Geiger, you're next on deck. Faye Kaiser. Jack Lerman. And then Ann Berkeley. Sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My comments are slightly over 3 minutes, and Jack Lerman has agreed to give me a minute of his time. I appreciate your patience. My name is Larry Distasi. I'm an Evanston resident. I live at 1111 Noy Street, just down the block from here. I'm co-artistic director of the Actors Gymnasium, which is a tenant of the Noy Center. And I am also vice president of the newly established Noyes Tenants Association. And in all honesty, I'm amazed that I'm standing here again before you, and I'm sounding the alarm about precisely the same issues that I have been for nearly a year now, and nothing has changed. In June of 2012, I spoke before you and urged that although the Piven expansion was an exciting idea, and Piven itself was a worthy and reputable organization, that the footprint of their plan was too large. They were proposing to take so much space that many other worthy, reputable artists and arts organizations in the building would be displaced and forced from their artistic homes. Many of these artists cannot afford studio rent at regular market rates and are completely dependent on the subsidized rents of the Noyes Center. I warned that the Piven expansion footprint was so large that nearly half of the building would no longer produce rental revenue for the city because Piven would only pay $1 per year in rent. This would make the building unsustainable, of questionable value to the city, and a potential political target in the future. And probably, honestly, what will happen to the rest of us tenants in the building is that our rents will get raised dramatically in the future to pay for Piven's expansion plans, so their gain becomes our loss. I also pointed out in June that we were merely 1,000 square feet from a compromise, which would allow all tenants in the building to be accommodated. And I foolishly thought that compromise was possible and important to everyone involved. But no compromise has been reached in that time. Piven Theater Workshop and City Manager Wally Bobkowitz have no interest in compromising what I feel are destructive expansion plans. And so I now urge you again to reject this proposal in its current state and ask them to please be reasonable and to compromise, to give an inch or two, 1,000 square feet or two. It is not only a matter of other tenants in the building being steamrolled by this plan. It is not only a matter of lost rental revenue to the city to the tune of $161,000 per year. It is also an unrealistic construction budget.
You're a little over 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Piven's theater expansion, according to them, is modeled after the Looking Glass Theater Company space downtown. As it so happens, in addition to running the Actors Gymnasium, I'm also a founding member of the Looking Glass Theater Company. And I know firsthand how much it cost to renovate that space on Michigan Avenue 10 years ago. In fact, I was on the telephone today talking to John Morris, who was the architect who designed the Looking Glass Theater space, along with dozens of other theaters in this town, including Steppenwolf and Northlight Theaters and the Old Town School of Folk Music, which was mentioned today. He said that Looking Glass's renovation in 2003, 10 years ago, cost $291 per square foot, plus 25% for a soft cost, legal, architectural, engineering. 10 years later, Piven is estimating that their budget will cost $3,550,000 for 13,000 square feet. That comes to only $218 per square foot, with 25% for the soft costs. This, in John Morse's estimation, is very unrealistic. He said it's possible, barely, but definitely on the absolute bottom end of feasibility and leaves no room for unanticipated problems. He currently uses a figure of $320 per square foot to estimate...
You have 1 more minute.
Thank you, sir. To estimate theater renovations precisely like the one Piven is proposing. That square footage figure would bring the total cost to around $5.2 million. So why is Piven asking for a footprint which they cannot afford, which hurts other artists in the Noyes Center and loses the city of Evanston hundreds of thousands of dollars per year? I don't know. I don't understand it. A smaller footprint would be the fiscally responsible thing for the city of Evanston to do. It would be the realistic thing for Piven to undertake, and it would be the right thing to do for the arts community of Evanston, which includes the livelihood of all the Evanston artists who create their work in the Noyes Center. Please, please ask the Piven Theater Workshop to reduce their footprint for all our sakes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gary Geiger. I'm the founder and director of the Evanston Children's Choir. I would like to respectfully ask if I might be permitted to read my entire one-page statement. Is there anyone who could divert minutes to me who is... Thank you so much. I appreciate that, especially in light of what's happened with the Children's Choir's situation lately. Thank you to the Human Services Committee for allowing me the chance to speak, and thank you to all who showed up in support of the arts and the choir today. Let's see. I'm trying to cut this short here, so I'm... Let's see. Well, at some point, I want to speak to what I see as I'm alarmed at what's happening to the artistic community in general throughout this whole process. Regarding the general debate, from the day that the Evanston Children's Choir arrived over 4 years ago at the Noyes Center, all I kept hearing about was how the building was in dire straits, they're going to turn it into a parking lot, etc. And a bunch of us started talking about how things would need to be done differently lest it turn into another Harley Clark Mansion, which is now defunct due to lack of investment. At some point, Piven Theater became the driving force of potential new investment in the building, of course, as we all know. And I'm not here to villainize Piven Theater. They're one of the crown jewels of the Evanston arts scene. In fact, I believe that a major entity with a lot of clout and resources like Piven Theater is often necessary to facilitate changes of this kind. But many artists were wary, and I do understand why now. In my opinion, what has happened is that the city has become myopic in its focus on catering mostly to Piven Theater and on making the Noyes Center building a shining example of Evanston's investment in the arts to the actual detriment of Evanston's broader artistic community. In other words, with all due respect, the city seems to be inexplicably willing to disregard so many of the very artists and organizations that it claims to value as essential to Evanston's economic growth, providers of an immense amount of community service, and key elements of Evanston's cosmopolitan reputation for the sake of one organization and a partially rehabbed building. Let's look at the example of the Evanston Children's Choir and our recent near eviction from the Noyes Center. I can summarize in 5 brief points how that whole episode illustrates the disconnect between what the city says it wants and what it is doing. Number 1, Mr. Bobkowitz says that first and foremost he wants the Noyes Center to be, and I'm paraphrasing, an artistic engine of economic growth. The Evanston Children's Choir, while two-thirds of its members are Evanston residents, nevertheless we bring in tens of thousands of dollars annually from tuition and donations from well beyond Evanston borders, and that current amount will more than double as we reach our capacity in coming years. The vast majority of that money is spent right here in Evanston. Number 2, there's been a lot of talk about seeing the Noyes Center revitalized revitalized with activity. The Evanston Children's Choir brings in over 100 kids and their families through its doors every week with a capacity to expand to over 200. Number 3, there has been much concern, understandably so, with keeping the reputable name of Piven Theater at the Noyes Center. Yet, given the community leaders and other residents of Evanston and beyond who have stood up for the Evanston Children's Choir and reached out to us in recent weeks, I believe the ECC's own reputation has been resoundingly reaffirmed as front and center in the people's minds when it comes to what they value about the Evanston arts scene.
Mr. Geiger, you're at 3 minutes.
Thank you. I've had some time diverted, if I understand. Yeah. Number 4, all Noyes Center residents are required by the city to do a certain amount of community service, and ECC's amount will be 8 to 10 times that required. Number 5, Evanston prides itself on how it values diversity and multiculturalism. The ECC is one of the only Noyes tenants that regularly brings in a large number of ethnically and economically diverse kids through its doors. So I've just listed 5 ways in which the choir goes over the top when it comes to providing what the city says it wants, yet this is the group, the only group in the end that was singled out not to be a tenant in the Noyes Center. That is what I call a major disconnect. Let's go back to the broader picture. The ECC is one major asset that the Noyes Center almost lost due to seemingly having blinders on. Let's look at what it's already lost, the Noyes Center, that is, for largely the same reason. Arlen Music Production, longtime resident, nationally known, award-winning operation that did more community service than anybody, gone. Light Opera Works, a theatrical organization with a 30-year history in Evanston, gone, not just from the Noyes Center, but from Evanston entirely. This is in addition to a number of individual artists who left from multiple disciplines who were very disillusioned, frankly, and it's left holes in our arts center. There's not a happy, cohesive community here. The members of the Noyes Center feel unappreciated and disregarded, and this whole idea of having to force some tenants out has everybody on edge and is straining relationships. I, for myself, don't even still feel secure with the ECC's tenancy at the Noyes Center. The city may very well value a thriving arts community as both a cultural and economic boon to Evanston, but it's not handling things well. I keep hearing things like it's impossible to come up with a solution that pleases everybody. Life is not fair, but it is incumbent upon us to make it fair. Yes, I'm pleased that there seems to be an informal consensus that the ECC should stay in the building, but I'm disappointed to hear talk about who should leave instead. Aren't we so close, 1,000 square feet, 1 or 2 rooms away from making room for all? We have an opportunity here to start making things right. Again, thank you. I was encouraged to read comments in the paper last week from Leslie Brown stating that Piven Theater wants to work with the city to come up with creative solutions and that she thinks there's room for everybody. Some modification of Piven's plan will likely be part of that solution, but I believe increased investment by the city should as well, especially given the immense economic benefits of Evanston's artistic scene. A 2005 Evanston Community Foundation study found that $25 million in direct benefits and $89 million in indirect benefits come from our artistic community. We need to start investing in the infrastructure that supports that creative community, or we're going to lose those economic benefits. Never mind gaining 10 more million, you're going to lose over 100 million. I think that such capital investment is long overdue, given the example of the Harley Clark Mansion. Last summer, I read an article that Mr. Bobkowitz was talking about. He was speaking as to the deficit spending in Evanston with all the improvements going on, the viaducts, the new bike trails. And he said something to the effect that this is a great time to do that because the interest rates are very low and we can borrow so much for pennies on the dollar. I propose that in addition to what Piven is borrowing and raising, in addition to whatever grant money may be coming from the state for the roof, let's prioritize some of the current capital improvement spending by the city for the Noyes Cultural Arts Center and make more creative, usable space. We've already lost a mansion, so let's make the Noyes Center a real example of our shining commitment to the arts and create a bigger, better facility that can accommodate all of its remaining artists and thereby invest in something that will give us back so much. If we're going to do this, let's stop damaging the very community we purport to value so much, and let's do it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. Someone has given me their time also.
Okay. Who?
What's her name? Sheila.
Yeah, and so then we'll yes. Cross her name off the list.
I'm not going to speak long. Hi. I just want to say that I'm Faye Kaiser, and I teach voice at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. And I want to thank Alderman Tindem and Ms. Fisk for coming to our open house. If you want to know what the Noyes Center is all about, you have to come to an open house. We I'm telling you, what the Noise Center is a jewel. It's not stagnant, Joel. And it's nothing personal with the Pivens. How we feel as tenants is that the Noise Cultural Arts Center was an old school building, and it always will be an old school building. And it should be a house where other teachers, where a lot of different artists of different races, cultural background, money, are housed. If the Piven plan goes through, and they're updating the Piven Theater, what about the little studios that are left on the other side of the building? And also, a wonderful article in Evanston Now. You know, Joel talked about money that they were going to bring in, and that's only dependent on if they book out their 200-seat theater every single night. You must read the article. I'm going to mimeograph it. I'm so old. Oh, my God. I'm still using that term. Send me to my room. I'm going to make copies of this because you've got to see this whole picture. They want a 53-year lease. I should have a 53-year lease for $1 a year. It's only after the first 33 years.
You're at 2 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's only after the first 33 years that they're going to pay $75,000 in rent or something. It's ridiculous. And all of the second floor is going to be demolished. Studios. Ken had a studio. Maggie's a wonderful artist. Her studio is on the line. My studio's on the line. And it isn't just taking people and moving them from one room to the other as if we are unimportant. We are all important. I've been teaching voice. I taught at the Academy of the Arts. I have won awards. But I don't have to have everybody in Evanston know how wonderful I am. The fact that people come and want to sing, that some people don't even have money and they come and sing. That's what's important. You're going to decimate the whole second floor. Studios that could house little people that are just starting out. It's absurd. It's absurd. If Pivens want, they can expand, but why can't they make the space they have good? Plus, they're driving the city out of the building. Jeff won't be there, Jill Silverman, and Wally lied to us. I love Wally. He's a wonderful person, but he lied to us. He said that we as tenants would have the power to decide what was going to go on in the building. And we came up with a self-sustaining idea, everything, and he completely ignored it. Out of the blue, he said, Pivens are expanding. There has not been any conversation between us. None. And I don't care what he said to you. I swear to God, we have been kept out of it. And is this the way you treat artists, people that have been in this building? We've paid the rent. And it's not, you think that the building was falling apart around us. It's a 110-year-old building, for God's sake. And it's active. People are there. I'm sorry I'm so upset about this, but you've got to either stop this or I propose if you're going to redo the building, then do it right. Build up into the attic. Fix the basement so that even more artists have a chance to produce their art there. That's what it stands for. I was there when they wrote the original mission statement in '82. That's what it stands for, and that's what it should stand for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Lerman. You have 3 minutes, sir.
I think I'll start with the last paragraph first because there's so many different things. My name is Jack Lerman. I live at 2412 Park Place, and my wife and I are tenants at the Noise Cultural Arts Building. We are visual artists and artist teachers, and we have a master's degree from the School of the Art Institute. But I'm going to jump down here. As a taxpayer, I have financial concerns. I am questioning the realistic evaluation of the Pivens' ability to come up with the money to support their future. Have the city and the aldermen looked perhaps at their last 5 years of financial records. 5 years. Will this loan be using taxpayer money? I have the 2010 and 2011 tax reports of the Piven, and in it says that there's a loss in 2010 of $85,000 and a loss of 2011 of $64,000, and the mathematics that we heard from the director is completely different. They may be making some money this year, but I'd like to have everybody go back to see the last 5 years. I mean, we've had a lot of problems in Evanston. I've been here since 1964. My first job was an art teacher at the Noyes Cultural Center. They had the art department in the basement. They put asbestos piping, covering over the lead pipes in the room we were in. And we were worried about that in 1964. I noticed there's a tear in some of the asbestos pipes now. Sure, you can cover it and all that, but this building is 100 years old. And what the young lady who just talked before.
You have one more minute, Mr. Lerman.
Pardon?
One more minute.
All right, and I just want to say there's some real problems about constructing and reconstructing. Also, the diversity has changed drastically. As somebody else has said, Richard Halstead was a portrait artist. He's gone. Enid Burton was a writer. She's gone. Saul Lieberman, a photographer, she's gone. And others are really concerned about the business that we're getting from let's face it, the business we're getting from the Mr. Bobkowitz. He has come in our particular meetings and has really laid us low. He kept on saying we.
I'm going to need you to wrap it up, sir.
Pardon?
I'm going to need you to wrap it up in the next 15 seconds,
okay.
Please.
I object. You had a whole thing on Piven. You let them talk so many times. Anyway, I just want to say that.
Okay.
Also, I give community service. I have for 25 years given every Monday, a free 3-hour lesson on Mondays at the Levy Center. And I think all of us have done the same type of thing. And there's nobody saying that at all, really. Mr. Bobkowitz or all of them have not said anything that we do as individual artists. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm going to ask the next 5 people on the list to come on deck. Joanna Pinsky, Janad Ritsky, Sarah, looks like you gave up. Thank you very much. Julie Phelan. Okay. Michael Montenegro. And then Claire Austin Smith. Ms. Berkeley, give your name and address, please.
Yes.
3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ann Berkeley, and this is Heidi Bloom. We are co-chairs of the Evanston Arts Council, and we will be very brief. We are so glad that we live in a city where so many people care passionately about the arts. On the city website, the Evanston Arts Council's mission is stated to encourage the involvement of citizens in the arts, to aid the coordination of private and public cultural activities, in addition to administering and developing Noyes as a cultural arts center for the Evanston community. Last year, the city manager met with Heidi and myself to discuss his plans for changes at Noyes, including a plan to make the building more financially sustainable. We were told that due to proposed rearrangement of leases and space, the Arts Council would no longer be administering Noyes Cultural Arts Center. Since then, we've turned our attention to the Evanston Arts Study, as you know, and to reconnecting with over 36 of the major arts organizations and artists in the city, including many of the tenants at Noyes. During the past few weeks and months, many artists and concerned citizens have appeared before the Arts Council, both at our meetings and individually, to voice their opinions on the Piven proposal, to seek a loan from the city for the purpose of expanding and reconstructing the space. It appears at this time that the majority of the people that we've heard from are not in favor of this ambitious plan. So just before our last meeting in April, we were able to access a one-page summary of the Piven proposal. That's all we had seen at that time. And so based on that summary and the opinions expressed in the community to us, we compiled a list of questions that we feel need to be answered before any action can take place. So we emailed the questions on Friday, May 3rd, to everybody on the City Council, to the Mayor, and to City Manager Wally Bobkowitz. We strongly encourage you to read and consider, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. We remain optimistic that with so many amazing artists and people who care passionately about the arts in Evanston, that these changes can be made in a way that will benefit everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Pinsky.
Thank you. My name is Joanna Pinsky. I live at 1223 Grant Street. I've lived in Evanston for probably over 40 years, and I've been at the Noyes Center as a tenant, as artistic director of Art Encounter for over 30 years. Art Encounter is an art education organization that reaches many diverse communities within Evanston and the Chicago area. I think that Pivens are a fine organization. However, I would really like to see them offer some compromise. I'm concerned on several fronts. One is, as a taxpayer in Evanston, I am worried about how they are going to meet this wonderful financial goal that they claim. I think it's all conjecture, so I'm concerned about that. The sustainability model that we had really did support Noyes. They talk about sustainability and creativity, but I'm a little confused about that because that seems to be in only one area, which is theater. And again, there's been a loss of other artists. And I'm concerned also about the continued loss of artists in the building. The city says, oh yes, we'll find new homes for the artists, but where and when? And I don't think any account is taken into the expense that it costs for artists to move. So I agree very much with Gary Geiger and Larry DeStassi, and I just want to quickly introduce Nadine Royster, who's one of our teaching artists. Art Encounter employs many teaching artists who live in Evanston. Nadine,
you have 1 minute.
So just Nadine's going to invite you to a project at Noyes.
Quickly.
We have a project for Linking Generations, a program we do every year at the Levy Center. And what it does is it brings together our high school students, Evanston high school students, and our senior artists to do projects together and to learn about each other. So we would love for you to join us on the 16th for that. But I want to say one more thing before I go. This is an all-inclusive community, and as Joanna said, there are a multitude of types of artists in this community. We depend on this community to support our livelihood. I live as a professional artist. So you take her away, then you've taken away my livelihood to stay in Evanston. And a couple of years ago, we were the highest concentrated area.
I'm going to need you
to
wrap
ever.
it up, please.
So
thank you very
keep
much.
in mind
Thank
about
you.
that.
Thank you. Before the next speaker comes to the mic, if you'd like to submit your comments that you've written out to our staff here to be written into the minutes, you can do that as well. Mr. Ritzky.
Thank you. I don't represent either group. As you know, you sitting up on the committee know, I come here to talk about financial issues of this city. Private and public partnerships that use all our money don't really have no value to me as a taxpayer and anyone else. And this council has done quite a few deals and called them economic development that are private-public partnership. Time is short, so I can't go into all the deals. But I am quite disturbed that the Pivens haven't been paying rent. And why would you go into a deal with anybody who's not paying rent on their building, current rent? So that troubles me. Mr. Bobkowitz some time ago said he wants to do these deals because he can't maintain the buildings. He needs to get more money to maintain them. I don't see any analysis in this that shows anything. Just like the Peckish One deal, completely screwed up, numbers completely wrong. There's no numbers here. Numbers that don't show anything about how you're going to really recover the rent or anything in regards to the maintenance. It's typical city staff, basically political nonsense that doesn't do anything. And there's hundreds of millions of dollars here in capital problems that dwarf this little theater. And everybody on this council, some know it, some don't know it. But you have hundreds of millions of dollars of problems, and you're not fixing them. And really, what's troubling to me here is, frankly, Mr. Bobkowitz continues to not really do his job right. And I agree with one of the speakers. What's going to happen here, this deal is structured completely wrong. The Pivens get a free break on rent, $1. And what are they going to do? You're not going to maintain the building again? You're just fixing the roof. Where's the other maintenance? So where's the rent you're collecting? So these other people are going to pay the rent. This is just like what's happening with our water rate bills, by the way. Right now, city water rate payers are subsidizing the other users because you've made a mess of the thing. It's undercapitalized. It's the same thing, same problem. Basically, you're not recovering the capital, your expenditures, and Evanston water rate payers are subsidizing the Northwest Water Commission and other rate repairs.
You have 1 minute.
All right, I'll continue. So there are so many problems here that this deal is just a little tiny slice of what's going on here. And I think this council needs to wake up and start to act professional, understand what they're doing. I've sent you emails, and basically you don't even seem to understand the emails. I don't get any response. I didn't get a response that made any sense out of anybody. So I think you better start to look at these deals carefully and what value is. There's no 18% return here to me as a taxpayer on this deal, and that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Alderman, neighbors. My name is Julie Phelan. I am not a tenant at Noyes. I'm a local taxpayer. I live at Sherman and Noyes near the center. I've been closely following and researching the Noyes Center space planning and proposed Piven expansion since December. In addition to our children's amazing arts camps being relocated and fear for the camp's future, I'm concerned about the center's artist community being gutted and a revenue-making building regressing to become dependent on city funds. City Manager Bobkowitz stated in a prior Human Services Committee meeting that his office was working on, quote, a deal that makes sense for the Piven Theater Workshop and that makes sense for the city of Evanston. I'm here to try to clarify that there are other groups for whom the deal also needs to make sense. The Noyes Center and its present and current tenants, and people like me, the Evanston residents and taxpayers, many of whom are here tonight. To my mind, there are actually three separate issues joined in this discussion. First, Noyes Center's facility needs repairs short-term. Second, Noyes Centers needs a way to sustain itself financially long-term. And third, the city would like to offer incentives and assistance to make Evanston an attractive place for Piven to remain and to grow. The contract and plans forged by the city and Piven have been presented as solving all three of these issues. In the proposal before us, Piven receives a large loan, expands and upgrades its footprint in the building, is allowed to profit from subletting its space, and is given rent forgiveness for many years. Benefits attractive to Piven, and we are told that these will also solve both the immediate maintenance needs and the long-term financial stability of the center. But to me, my reading of this is that that's not exactly correct. Though the package being offered Piven might address the goal of keeping Piven in Evanston, it only partially addresses the short-term repair needs, and it doesn't in any way make Noyes Center financially viable long-term. In fact, the long-term financial stability is possibly made much worse by the Piven plan. The loss of rental income on so much space appears to me...
We have 1 minute.
Thank you. The end of possible financial independence for Noyes. There's reason to believe that it does not need to be this way and that other options do exist to keep Noyes Center financially healthy long-term. But these options, as you've heard, have not been given equal study. I've spoken with dozens and dozens of citizens since January. I think my husband wishes that I would just drop this and get on with life. But the feedback is the same. Yes, we really do value Piven's history and contribution to Evanston. But no, that being said, it does not mean that the city can provide a blank check. The only group that appears to be happy with the marriage proposed might be Piven. The noise tenants and the taxpayers overwhelmingly appear concerned. Perhaps if there's not a compromise to be found, we need to return to looking at the three issues at hand: short-term repair, long-term sustainability, and Piven remaining in Evanston separately. Perhaps the future of Noise Cultural Arts Center and that of Piven might be best served by calling this marriage,
I'm going to need you to wrap it up,
at least
please.
as currently proposed, off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Montenegro. I'm the artistic director of Theater Zarco, and I'd like to yield 2 of my minutes to Ken Arlen, who's speaking later on.
Thank you.
So I'll make it very brief. I've been in the Noise Cultural Arts Center twice. I had a studio for 7 years in the 80s and early 90s, and excuse me, I now run Theater Zarco, and I've been there for 5 years. And so I have a history there, and I have to disagree with some of the presentations of this beautiful building. I personally find it to be a very beautiful building with wonderful character, and it feels very clean to me. I've never had anything fall on me. That's important. The ambience of that building is very important. Also,
I'm going to need you to wrap it up if you're going to yield
also,
your minutes.
I have seen so much great art happen there, and I'll stop now. But
okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, before the next speaker, I just want to, again, we're going to try to keep this as respectful as possible, and we still have over 40 names to get through. So respectfully, we're going to try to move through this in an orderly fashion and be respectful to the speakers, please. I'd also like to call the next 5 speakers on deck. Ms. Susan Payne O'Brien, Jacob Wilson, Rosa Novak, Ken Arlen, who will have 5 minutes, and then John Wright. Ms. Smith.
Okay. Hi, my name is Clarison Smith. I'm a lifelong Evanston resident, and in the spirit of full disclosure, my mom is Maggie Weiss, so I've been able to follow this process pretty intimately. So in the presentation given by the board of Piven, I just want to ask the question to the term where he said moving forward. I want to ask, who are we moving forward to? As a child, I grew up taking classes both at the Piven Theater as well as the Arts Camp and the Young Artist Program at Noise. I was lucky enough to have parents who not only encouraged my participation in the arts, but who had the financial means to pay for these summer camps and for classes. They also had a car, so they could give me rides to my classes. My concern over Piven's proposed expansion relates to the additional community service hours that they will be taking on and what populations those community service hours will be serving. The community service now that they propose on taking over is valued at over $8,000 based only on 2012 rent, not on the 2013 fiscal year. I know that Piven, as well as some other entities in Noise, use scholarships to fulfill their community service requirement. It is extremely relevant to the city's interests to know how Piven plans on expanding their scholarships and who they will be giving these scholarships to. I tried to find a list of current scholarship recipients on their website, but there is no information. In my understanding, the purpose of community service requirement is to benefit the residents of Evanston, a sentiment that has been echoed in the newly released requirement by the city that in which art studios and Noise will only be rented to tenants who live within the Evanston city limits. This should carry over to the community service requirement as well. During my time as a student at Piven, I was consistently the only Evanston resident in all of my classes. Everyone else was from a North Shore suburb like Kenilworth, Winnetka, Glenview, and this could be indicative of the limited outreach conducted by Piven within Evanston, or perhaps indicative of what populations can afford classes that range from $400 to $1,000. I'm concerned that with this expansion, service hours that have historically been performed by other Noise Center residents and that serve marginalized groups that exist within the Evanston community will disappear. Service hours are threads that bind our community together.
You have 1 minute.
And should be taken seriously as a responsibility, not an afterthought. I want to know if Piven plans to expand their outreach to these communities that they will be taking service hours away from. How many of these scholarships are going to go to Evanston residents? How many will go to children who don't have access to transportation to the Noise Center? On page 136 of documents posted online, we might not even have to have this conversation because it appears that Piven will be allowed to buy their way out of these community service requirements, which is a major change to the lease requirements in the Noyes Center building. This should not be made in a unilateral decision, but rather by at least a referendum. Ultimately, as a city council, you must ask the question, how will this multi-million-dollar loan proposed by Piven circle back to our community and enrich the community of Evanston as a whole and not serve certain populations? If this plan fails to do that, then you cannot approve it in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Susan Payne O'Brien. I'm an Evanston resident. I have 2 kids, 7 and 2, in Evanston schools. And I had a statement prepared, and I think I'd like to switch gears a little bit because I'm hearing talk about scholarships. I've been a student and a teacher at Piven for over 25 years. It's been the foundational artistic community of my life. It's given me more gifts than I can even imagine an artistic organization giving children. And as I look around the room, all of our teachers, which I can't think of any other arts organization, maybe ETHS is similar to this, that a lot of teachers at ETHS are people who went to ETHS and felt the value of that school system. Piven is made up of people who were children at Piven and have come back and are devoted to its growth and its continued excellent work with children. So I just would love to have some of those teachers stand up and say out loud to you how long they have been studying and teaching at Piven. I can't think of another organization in Evanston that has this kind of loyalty, this kind of return, and that's the return that we need to be thinking about as a community. I mean, the financial return obviously is paramount in what we're talking about, but I'm here to speak to the return that has been the quality of my life. I now teach at Roosevelt University. I bring this training to opera singers. It's not just for theater artists, playwrights, excellent humans, community service-minded individuals have grown up in this training that focuses on all of these issues that are so important to Evanston. I know, having lived here pretty much my entire life. So if we could have the teachers stand up and just say out loud how many years you've been affected by the magic at Piven and why you're still teaching there. Kelly.
Scholarship student. I started 17 years ago, and now I bring Piven to the West Garfield Park area every week. And my name is Beth. About 17 years too, and I was a scholarship student. My name is Donna. I came to Piven as an adult 16 years ago, and it is my artistic home. And when they asked me if I was interested in becoming a teacher, I was scared, and I said yes. And it is the greatest joy in my life to come into this community and to teach children. My name is Becky. I've only been here for 6 years, but they've been 6 totally life-changing years.
My name is Thomas. I've been here for over 12 years, and it's been a wonderful.
And Beth, I should mention, also works with the Adults with Developmental Disabilities group, PEEP, and as well, which is an amazing theater organization in Evanston that does amazing community work.
You have about 30 seconds to wrap up your comments,
I'm the
please.
only, I think I'm one of the only members of the Piven community speaking in favor. So these are all people who I'm representing. So that's 3 minutes. Can they just say their names and how long they've been teaching? Because I think it's important to hear.
Hi, I'm Leah Gale. 25 years at Piven. I grew up there. I teach there, and I'm an Evanston resident.
Hi, Julia Zuckerman. I've been teaching and working with Piven for 10 years, and with all the support that Piven has been able to give me, I've been able to start my own theater company and reach out to the larger artistic community and to Piven. It's my home. It's my artistic home.
I'm Morven. I've been a student at Piven for over 15 years and a teacher for about 7.
Hi, my name is Jen Green. I've been with Piven 20 years. I'm currently the artistic director. I started as a teacher at Piven Theater.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Joanne Underwood. I started as a scholarship student at Piven 14 years ago, and now I'm one of the senior teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jacob Wilson. I live on 3517 Central Street, and I'd just like to keep it short, but I'd just like to say that Piven I've taken classes there, and I know that Piven has helped me with team building and a lot of exercises that actually helps me with school and other exercises, but I think because of its sort of smaller environment, it doesn't give other kids that much, it doesn't give them much energy to show their true emotions. And I think with the proposal to add more, I think this will give kids more new ways to show what they really feel. And I'd that's pretty much it. But I'd just like to make one more statement that I think another reason why they should add more offices and things to Piven is because I think that the original office was a bathroom. So that's one of my statements. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I have Rosa Novak next.
Hi, I'm Rosa Novak. I'm going to give one of my minutes to Ken,
Okay.
but I'm going to speak shortly. I'm a ETHS senior, and I'm here as a representative both of my experiences at Noyes and also the youth art community at Evanston. And I kind of want to jump back to both what Gary Geiger was saying earlier and also Faye. And I think that Evanston artistic community is suffering in a way in that just through my experience in the visual arts, there hasn't been that many community outreach experiences for me in my time in high school. But those outreach experiences I have found have been through the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. This year, through the Senior Studies program, I did a second semester project in which I did an art installation in a studio at Noyes with the mentorship of Maggie Weiss. And I searched for a space for 4 months and found that visual arts space at Noyes. And I think with this Piven plan, I wouldn't have been able to have that space. And I really hate to think that future youth in the arts in Evanston wouldn't have a chance and wouldn't have a space like that to explore creativity and to do visual art. And I don't have a problem with Piven. I just think that there has to be a way that they can expand, but also there wouldn't be any harm done to the accessibility of visual art for ETHS students. So.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, congratulations, Ms. Novak, on a really great senior studies project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarlin, you have 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Thank you very much to those. Michael, thank you for the 2, and thank you for the 1. My name is Ken Arlen, Mr. Chair and respected alderman, and I'm speaking to you tonight as a lifelong resident of Evanston. I pay taxes now on both a residence and a commercial property. Also someone who's made a successful career in the arts, specifically in live music performance. There's 75 folks that make their living from the efforts of Arlen Music. I should have brought a few of them tonight. Until last September, I was a resident of the Noyes building and a resident for 18 years. I'm still very passionate about Noyes and its best interest moving into the future. I know I'm going to have to speed up. I'd like to speak to you tonight about 2 key elements regarding your decision on the Piven proposal. First is the importance of the city making a wise and informed economic decision investing taxpayer money, and secondly, the importance of a vital Noyes building moving forward into the future. My biggest concern about the Piven proposal is not the $2.2 million of taxpayer money you're being asked to invest. Mr. Fremont tonight did not even address the $15 million over a 50-year period of time that you would lose in lost revenue. By best estimates, right now, the 11,666 square feet of space that the Piven would be taking, rentable space, would amount to $150,000 a year of lost rent. And that's assuming that we keep the city office in the building. If we take out the city office, then it's about $162,000. If you amortize that over a 30 to 50-year period of time, at cost of living adjustments for inflation, you're looking at $12 to $15 million. That is the true legacy that you'll be voting on. Not the $2.2 million. It's the lost revenue of $15 million over a 50-year period of time. I also believe that construction expenses of $3.5 million are grossly understated. As Lori pointed out, according to John Morris, an expert in the field who did Looking Glass, Stepping Wolf, Northlight, and Old Town, we should be factoring in about $320 a square feet plus an extra 25% for engineering, legal, and architectural costs. The Piven renovation would measure out at over 13,000 square feet because we're repurposing first and second floor hallway space, and we're estimating that at conservatively at about $5.2 million. Add the 2 together, you come up with about a $20 million project. Add to that the fact that this building was built in the late 1800s with 16-inch walls. This could easily become a money pit when you start knocking down these walls. I would like to know if there is a construction company that will take on this project and guarantee that you do not have substantial overages on a proposed construction budget. Looking at the money, I'm not sure that either the Pivens or the City of Evanston can afford a project of this magnitude. Please keep in mind the Pivens would pay back only $400,000 in the first 10 years in their proposal. And like many arts organizations, they're having financial problems already without taking on a project of this magnitude. Finally, regarding costs, I'd like to point out, as it was pointed out once before, that we tried the 50-year, $1 a year month model with EAC at Harley Clark, and it didn't work. Over a 50-year period of time, we now have a building that is deemed too expensive to renovate. The second area, and I feel the most important area I'd like to address, is the idea of revitalization. I believe the original vision of Richard Cusack and Joe Zindel for Noise still stands true. Noise represents an affordable home for a diversity of artists from many different disciplines, from the performing arts to the visual arts. It also combines non-for-profit with for-profit artists that can share in a unique culture and provide community service and free programming to the City of Evanston. It was never designed to serve one majority tenant. I will debate with anyone that this is not a successful vision.
You have 2 minutes, please.
With a 40-year practical application. The point is the Noise building is not broken. It just needs some leadership and some new blood. The physical structure needs the new roof that Mr. Bobkowitz has successfully secured a grant for, and it needs maybe an additional $1 to $2 million of renovation over the next 5 years. In November of 2012, a self-sustainability program was presented to the city that with conservative estimates would generate an annual operating surplus of $200,000 a year at no expense to the Evanston taxpayer. This was passed up by city management to accommodate the needs of Piven Theater with the mantra of revitalizing Noise. I would argue that vitality and programming does not come from a physical structure. It comes from the hard work of a diversity of engaged artists.
You have 1 minute,
This is where
please.
we need to apply our vision and leadership. I believe the Piven proposal is a potential economic Titanic, and you're being asked to vote on a proposal without even being able to evaluate the impact of Piven's community service that will not be released until December. I'm also concerned that you're not seeing the true cost to the city. If you pass this proposal, it is clearly a sweetheart deal for the Pivens. Who wouldn't want a new multi-million-dollar, 13,000 square foot build-out for $1 a year rent? Piven is a stellar organization, but I do not believe this vision serves the best interests of the Evanston arts community or Evanston taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, 1 moment before you speak. I'm going to call the next five speakers. Maggie Weiss, Susan Stern, Greg Allen, Beth Wojcik, sorry if I mispronounced that, Carlo Sparrow, Mr. Wright, you have 3 minutes.
Okay,
sir.
yeah. I'm John Wright. I live over on Noy Street. I'm the son and grandson of architects, both named Henry Wright, whom you can find on Wikipedia, and each of whom knew what every brick cost when they built their things. I am worried about the roof. I'm worried about the... Last time I was in this building, I was told that it would cost X million dollars to make it livable for the things that happen here. Just livable, just possible. And I forget what the number of $1 million was, but I do remember one thing. It was the same amount of money that it would have cost to build a whole new, that I learned just at exactly the same time, to build a whole 8-story hotel for all the College of Cardinals in Vatican City that same year. That was the same amount of money just to repair this place, we were told by the experts and so forth. And then we had a financial crisis, and somehow we all have managed to survive in this place. And so I've come by and paid my bills here, and you all have been living here and whatnot. And we didn't have to build a whole new College of Cardinals thing. So I worry about just the estimates of the cost of fixing up that place. I worry when I hear how much the roof is going to cost, when it cost me $3,000 to have a whole new roof on my house on Noyes Street, why does it cost X zillion dollars to have a whole new roof put on something there just a little bit further down on Noyes Street and so forth? I worry about these experts that keep telling us these things. And so my main feeling is, if you want to preserve something, and I think we all do, leave it alone.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maggie Weiss.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Maggie Weiss. I'm at 2744 Lawndale Avenue in Evanston and Studio 221 at the Noyes Cultural Arts Center. First of all, I want to thank everybody who was able to make it to our open house on Thursday, including Wally Bobkowitz and Mayor Tisdall. And for those who couldn't make it, we hope to have an open house open to the public and the city and the Arts Council for those who couldn't make it before the next Human Services meeting on June 3rd. Also, thanks for the chance to speak tonight. I wanted to address several concerns that are in between the lines of the Piven proposal, some of which have been addressed by people who've spoken before me, so I won't probably take up as much time as I thought. Susan Stern has volunteered to give me her minutes, but I probably won't need all the time. I agree with everything that Wally reported about the schedules of events that they have transpired over the last 22 months. I was at many of those meetings, and sadly I do have to report that although he's a great listener and very patient with our concerns, we do feel that we have not been engaged despite all the time we've spent together. I really hope that tonight we can ask you to make sure that Piven and the city find a way to work forward together with the Tenants Association. It happens that over the last few years, the Noyes building has run at a surplus, netting over $50,000 every year for the past few years. You may or may not know that this $50,000 goes back, or has been going back, into the general fund of the city of Evanston to pay for what other expenses. It has not come back to the building, which is why we don't have money for capital improvements. What hasn't been shown in the Piven proposal or any of the documents that we've seen is how the city will account for that loss in the future budget. I did go through almost all of the 283 pages, and I did not find any budget projections for how those costs are going to be accounted for. We will not have any surplus. The city budget's not going to have that money. It's going to come back to us. Perhaps someday one of you will aspire for another office in city government. This lease term is 40 years. Maybe in 15 years, one of you are going to run for mayor. You're not going to have that money, and it's going to be compounded year after year after year. How are these plans going to be financed? What else is going to have to be cut? And will this building end up in disrepair just like the Harley Clark, in which I have taught many classes? So
Maggie, I'm going to need you to wrap it up soon, please. 2:50. Did you?
She gave my
did?
minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And your name? Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Last year, Evanston spent thousands of dollars in grant money to generate a study that recommends a downtown theater project that the mayor herself said we can't afford. We believe the Piven project warrants an unbiased review of its feasibility, and we hope you won't move this forward without one, an objective, unbiased review. There's something else that we couldn't find mentioned anywhere else, which is the opportunity cost of the project. As Ken and other people have said, over the 40-year terms of the lease, that loss adds up to $14.5 million. Yes, the interest paid is going to be $725,000. But what that means is subtract that from $14.5 million, and the city is paying upwards of $3 million for the privilege of having Piven in the building. I believe we can work forward, we can move forward together, and I believe we can find a solution that is better, more viable for the city of Evanston. I would like to point out a couple things that I noticed this evening after reading the document online. According to the document about community service, the community service going forward for Piven is based on their 2012 rent, which is a total of $8,900. However, that's guaranteed for the next 40 years. But their space is tripling, or it's increasing by 2.8% or 2.8 times, which means the actual value of the community service for the 12,000 square feet that they'll be occupying is $24,000. So we're getting shortchanged. In addition, the community is getting shortchanged. I also would like to call into question a discrepancy I've noticed. In Joel's presentation, he said that they'll estimate $25,000 will be generated in a liquor tax because we'll be able to buy a drink when we go to a production. And today there was an article released by Leslie Brown in Evanston Now, which states that the revenue from liquor will be $9,000 and change annually. So that's a big difference, but I'm not sure we can count on people drinking to increase our tax burden or reduce our tax burden. That's pretty much it. I didn't want to add anything else except that at the very end of the article today, and I quote, "The assumptions herein reflect the potential for increased rents based on a building that is now significantly more desirable," unquote. That would be post-renovation.
You have about 30 seconds.
And we have been assured that rents will not be going up to account for the shortfall. So I would love for you to please pursue an answer to that dilemma and see if you can figure out where that money is coming from. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you. Greg Allen? Yes.
Hi, I live at 1417 Kirk Street here in Evanston for about 15 years. I spoke to you a couple months ago here. I really hoped I wouldn't have to come back or even speak today because no one's really said the obvious thing, including the Piven people. It's the Piven Theater Workshop. They have a long history of teaching kids and adults, and I mean, there's a long legacy of that. But this $2.2 million build-out is to build a theater. There's very little history in the last decade of a production. If you go on the website for the Piven Theater, they have one 2-week production in the last couple of years. It's like giving me a couple $1 million. I mean, I'm a director. I've had 25 years in the theater history here in Chicago and Evanston, and work at the Goodman and run a theater for 25 years. But it's like giving me $2 million to run a theater arts camp. I would have no ability to do that because that's not what my history is based on. I don't understand why $2 million is going to a state-of-the-art theater for a company that is known as as a training ground, not a producing company. Where are we going to get the 200 people to fill those seats 365 days a year? That would be awesome. But on the other hand, I know what it takes to do that. My company mounts 250 productions a year. They mount 27 shows in the last year, 27 nights of performance, of professional performance in their theater. It just doesn't make any sense. If they want to build out as a training center, that would be great. But if you take that theater out of the middle, there's enough space for everybody. There's certainly enough money to build all the classrooms they need. But why are we building this 200-seat state-of-the-art theater in the middle for a company that has very little production history? That's my question. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Beth. I'm going to yield my time to Joel Freemuth.
All right. The next speaker is Carlo Aparo. Thank you, sir.
I'm also going to yield my time, and I didn't get a chance to say it before. I came in as an adult, and Piven's been with me for 6 years, and it will be with me for the rest of my life.
Okay. And you're yielding? Okay.
I'm back. Mr. Chair, thank you. Alderman, I won't take the full 6 minutes. I was just yielded. However, I think that some of the points that have been raised deserve a response, and had citizen comment come at the beginning, I would have worked them into my remarks. When you clear through the smoke, there seem to be 3 to 5 points that are continuously raised and re-raised. Number 1 is the self-sustainability model proposed by Ken Arlen at the same time Piven began its internal discussion. We hear a lot about the assumptions made or not made about the Piven plan. I'm going to read from this noise self-sustainability model. Assumption number 1, all space and noise must be rented to interested artists. That currently is not the case. There are 6 units empty on the 2nd floor alone. The city reserves space. Secondly, additional space should be freed up for interested arts by enforcing the residency requirement of 25 hours per week. Open space can be offered to current artists, along with new prospective tenants. The residency requirement can further be defined to support individual artists versus organizations, which makes sense. It's coming from an individual artist. Requirement number 3, every tenant in the Noise Center, including profit and not-for-profit, must work together to develop a fundraising program for noise. Number 4, and this is for all the people worried about increasing rents. Number 4 is that the self-sustainability model requires a rent increase to gain additional revenue. I'll go on. With all of that, an increased rent, all space rented out, no vacancies, increased residency requirement, all of that, the HVAC, the heating, the ventilation, the air conditioning improvements don't come until 2016. We take care of it today.
For half the building?
No, we actually take care of it for the entire building, as we have done in the past. In the 80s, Bern Piven, one of our founders, helped renovate the air conditioning for the building then. This has been part of our legacy. Now, we understand.
I'm going to ask for a little bit of order in respect to allow the speaker, and if you can please address your comments to the committee, sir.
In 30 years, yeah, things need to be repaired. As people who I have trouble determining why they're for or against have said, this is a 100-year-old building. It needs to be renovated. It doesn't need to be us that leads this charge. But we're the only ones standing here before you with a viable, realistic plan. The assumptions of the self-sustainability model and the assumptions of all the other plans that have been put forth didn't make it this far for a very good reason. People have come up here and they've said, what are you guys doing? Well, you guys run a pretty large city. This project represents less than 1% of the total budget of Evanston. And I think you guys know what you're doing. And one of the reasons I think that is because you put a trigger before 1 penny of Evanston's money is invested in this project. We, the Piven organization, has to raise in cash $355,000. Furthermore, along the way, there are conditions of default and other safeguards.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
There is no alternative plan that has made it this far for a very good reason. You guys have run this city impeccably well through a downturn. I've read the budgets from 2012 and 2013, not our tax documents. Yeah, we're an arts organization. We're a not-for-profit. So that we take a loss, we're allowed to under 501c3 rules. And our financial documents are published. The city has negotiated this lease with the best interests of the city in mind. And we have negotiated this lease with the best interests of our organization in mind, to transform our footprint into a vehicle for our future. There's nothing criminal about that, nor should there be. And we invite, and I had an hour-and-a-half discussion with Maggie Weiss a month and a half ago, the president of the Noise Tenant Association, inviting her even then to approach me.
You have 1 minute.
To approach me with ways we can work together. I listed, and she recorded the conversation, I listed a number of ideas of ways we could work with each individual artist, especially the ones that came up here. And I have not been approached by one of them. Some people, for whatever reason, are more interested in opposing progress than moving forward. We're not that. For the time we've been in Evanston and for the time we've been in the Noise Center, we have been a leader, and we will continue to move forward. and we feel this is the best way to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the next five speakers to come to the podium. Kelly Conley, Rebecca Stern, Gabriel Stern, or Gabrielle?
Gabriel had to go home to bed. He
Okay.
was here this night to speak in favor of Piven. He performed in our most recent show.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Kelly? To
Okay. No one wants to Piven. Hi, my name is Kelly Conley. I started as a student, and I'm a teacher there now. And I just want to explain a little bit about what it's like to teach in the space right now. The building does have a really lovely character. Also, it is badly in need of being updated. I love old things. I have a vintage rental company on my own. But I also know asbestos is dangerous. And chipping paint shouldn't be in a classroom with children. And the floors are actually coming up. And it's also an awkward space. The classrooms are in different parts of the building and hallways. And continually, parents are having trouble finding out where to drop off their kids and where to pick them up and where to come to our open workshop end of class performances. And we don't have a green room. We have another classroom that doubles as a green room. So all the time we're shifting things in and out to make space. And we make do. We really do. But there is only so much you can do in the space that's not been updated in a very long time. And I think the air conditioning is a really big deal, actually, because we have a lot of summer programming. And like I'm in a classroom that has one little window unit. And as soon as kids start moving, they're hot and they're sweating and they have to sit down, and it actually inhibits our teaching. So, and our administrative offices, I don't know if you visited, are extremely tiny, like unbelievably tiny. It was an old boys' bathroom, and it's also extremely hot. So there are really lovely aspects about the building, but I think there are ways in this plan to preserve a lot of the great character and make it a much more efficient and usable space for Piven and hopefully the other residents too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We heard from Rebecca Stern. Okay. Before we go to the second list, I just wanted to remind you we still have 24 speakers to get through before this evening, and we still have to go through the two items. So again, respectfully, I'm going to ask that you keep the comments and applause to a minimum, and we'll try to move through this as efficiently as possible. The next five speakers, Carol Bass, Joe Haas, Joan Gulim, I apologize, Judy Kemp, Elizabeth Metrick. All right. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we don't leave anyone out. If you hear your name, if you could please stand and come to the podium, and I'm going to read through this rather quickly. John Henna, Gracie Styler, Bruce Stiles, Marie Spreem, Barbara O'Connor, Anne Marie Quinn Hartman, Peter Sanchez, Giles Novak, Barbara Bronson, Kamisha Riley, Leslie Hirschfield, Alice, Joan Bloom, Rebecca Stern. I think these folks already spoke. Is there anyone here that would like to speak who has not had an opportunity to speak before we close public comments?
My name is Carol Bass, and I did not plan to speak as my name is.
Okay. Thank you. hold on, Faye, one moment. I just want to make sure on this item, Bonnie?
My name is Bonnie Wilson. I live at 530 Hinman. As some of you know, I'm the Evanston Township Assessor. I'm also a realtor in Evanston, and I've lived in Evanston for 40 years. Some of you might not know that I served on the board of Piven some 25 years ago. My son Mark started taking classes at Piven when he was 8 years old. My daughter-in-law Leslie took classes at Piven when she was a teenager, and now my grandson Jacob, who is 11, is also taking classes. To me, that says a lot about the workshop and its influence on my family. We are 3 generations of Piven supporters. How many people do you know can say the same? Taking classes at the Piven workshop is not only about learning how to be better actors, it's about learning to work together with others in our community that will make a difference in the world in which we live. As a realtor, I have helped countless people find homes in Evanston because they were looking to our city for its amenities, its beauty, and its rich culture history. We know what we have here is superb, but it needs continued support and investment to grow. After spending the better part of 3 decades supporting many of the groups in the Noyes Culture Arts Center, it is very clear that the center needs improving. I urge you to support investment in the arts in Evanston and to have facilities that match the caliber of art we have in this city. Thank you.
John House yielded to me, and I just have one thing to say. And this is to Joel. I'm just correcting something that was said. Wally sat with us, the tenants meeting, and said Pivens will have to come up with at least $1 million in cash, not in contributions or not in good deeds that were given. We said, really $1 million? He said at least $1 million, possibly $2 million. So now it's been reduced to $365,000. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Hi again. Giles Novak has ceded his time for me, but I don't need it all. I just want to explain that I misunderstood what Joel was saying, and I burst out laughing because I thought he was saying the whole building had air conditioning. So I apologize, Joel. I didn't mean any harm. I misunderstood. Also, the question has come up tonight from several speakers that Piven is not paying rent right now, but I did clarify that in one of my meetings with Wally that they are not paying rent until the dollar agreement goes into effect, and the total sum of their unpaid rent will be added on their outstanding debt, so it will eventually be paid. And just so that everybody in this room can understand that. And I also want to reiterate that I'm not blowing smoke, and I do very much appreciate Piven's presence in our community. I have family members besides my daughter who have taken classes there, and I know it's a great organization. I can support them, and I want to support them. What I can't support is the lack of dialogue, and I beg you to please encourage Piven to engage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, we'll close public comments. I think we need a motion to have discussion, correct? No? Okay. We can have discussion on the first item, HH5. Anyone?
Wait.
We're still on HH5. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to... That's what I was asking. Did anyone want to make any comments, or do you want to hear from the city manager? Okay. If we can hear from our city manager, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, HH5 is regarding the lease agreement. As Ms. Weiss just mentioned, there is not currently in place a lease for the Piven organization. We had hoped, I think, to have this before you earlier in the year. The idea all along was that this was going to be something that would go back to January 1st, so January 1st, 2013. So what HH5 does is amend the current lease with the Pivens, contemplating the ultimate adoption of Ordinance 43013. There is language within the agreements that are tied back to 43013 that would, if they are not successful, require the Piven organization to pay rent in kind through 2013 if 43013 does not move forward. I think perhaps it would be good to understand where the committee is on both items. It may make sense to hold both in committee. I think that I've been in the back taking notes of all the comments, and I think it would be appropriate for staff to come back with a series of responses to some of the questions that were raised. So it would be my recommendation that I be directed to do so. So you may wish to hold both in abeyance until your next meeting in June to get those. But I think it is going to be important, regardless how this turns out, we need to have a lease with Piven for 2013 because at this point they do not have one.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, thanks. So Wally, HH5 is actually retroactive to January 1st?
That is correct.
Okay. I guess I would move that the committee hold this in committee. I really want to see if you can come up with that 1,000 feet.
Sorry?
The 1,000 square feet that was referred to. I'm sure there's a way, given the difference between the 12,000 square feet. Sure, there's a way to work this out. I have a lot of concerns. This is in my ward. A lot of concerns that I don't think we need to discuss here, but that I will talk about definitely at council also. This is such an interesting situation because it's like so many of the things
There is a motion on the table, okay.
Okay. Did somebody second it? The motion that we hold this in committee and ask staff to go back and find the 1,000 feet, the 1,000 square feet.
I think what Mr. Bob is suggesting is that it's held in committee so that we can get some more additional information to address some of the questions that were asked, and it could include, among those other things, whether finding 1,000 feet makes this work for everyone.
I would want to make sure that we make every effort to find that 1,000 square feet.
Okay. And I think some other of us have
so
questions
if it's
that
all right,
I'd like to.
I'll recognize you in a moment. Hold on. Are you finished? And then I will.
You can call on me again, and I'll finish
Okay,
up.
thank you.
But we have the motion in a second, correct?
No, it hasn't been. It has not been seconded. So the motion
Once it's held,
fails.
we can't discuss.
Right.
So we'd like to discuss to give Mr.
Right.
Bobkowitz direction.
Okay, I apologize. Alderman Holmes.
I'm hearing some of the issues about the non-payment of rent is because there's no lease, and could we not go ahead and give them an extension in their lease so that at least they can begin to pay their rent through 2013? I don't know how long it's going to take to work this out. I'm not sure how long it's going to take us to discuss it and bring it back and hold it in committee. So to give them an extension on the current lease. And could we do that and then move on to, the other issues?
What HH4 does is, I'm sorry, what HH5 does is it amend their 2012 lease.
That's what I'm sorry.
But to be clear though, there is not a payment of dollars in that. There's information or language in 43013 that if that agreement is approved, they would not have to pay rent in 2013. That the in-kind work that they have done be credited toward rent in 2013. If that's not something that the committee is interested in, you could either amend HH5 so that it puts in place the same terms and conditions of their 2012 lease for 2013, and that if such time the agreement in HH6 is approved, that could be amended at that point if the council would prefer. But the discussions we've been having with them would not have dollars associated with rent payment for 2013.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Does that decision have to be made and recommended to council tonight?
I don't believe so. I think, quite honestly, I think that if you give us another month to answer questions that have been raised, additional questions you may have, we come back in June, and if you feel at that point there's not going to be a resolution soon, then perhaps it would make sense to reconsider a lease for 2013. If you feel after the June discussion that we're on a road that makes sense, then I think you could also look at the lease for 2013 in a different light. but I think that's really up to the council, up to the committee to determine.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, as to those questions then, could you include in your list, if you haven't already, Mr. Bobkowitz, provision for the long-term maintenance of the building? How do we incorporate community service
hours?
Under what terms into a new arrangement under the Piven proposal? How does this agreement make the Noyes Center more sustainable, more self-sustaining as a city facility? What will be the effects, the repercussions for rents for other tenants? I read the entire packet and was kind of repetitive because it kept detaching the same documents, but I saw in the proposed agreement there was provision for remediation of asbestos and lead. If there's a way to highlight that or give us more detail about it, and that presumably benefits every tenant in the building. So the effect on the city's rent subsidy for other tenants. My notes are in a, and then details about the structure of the $2.2 million loan. This is not a grant, it's a loan. And then as to the ability of Piven to afford this project. The reference was made to Piven having financial problems, suggestions that Piven was not a viable organization. But we need to understand the dimensions of this project and how Piven has already raised money, has money in the bank, and what are the finances that allow them to be able to undertake this project with us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Could you add? Could you add
Can we-
onto Jane? Could we add onto your list the difference between the $1 million and the $355,000 in terms of the amount of cash that Piven has to come up with?
Just clarification on dollars. Alderman Tandem and then Alderman Fisk.
Thank you. I think that I'm not saying not go ahead with any of these proposals that council and obviously members of the community, arts community, especially the Evanston Arts Council, have raised. They had a list of many good questions that were distributed late last week, and I think a lot of those I couldn't begin to answer. So I think that needs to be carefully looked at. I appreciate the notion of finding the 1,000 square feet, but quite honestly, I think in the long term, we're really not serving either group that well. We'll still be maxed out in a arts center that we have every intention of growing. At least that's the spirit of that center. I don't know that it seems to me there might be an ongoing struggle between the visual arts and the performing arts. Even once the space is divvied up, there could be issues about hours and money and access, all kind of things. So I don't know. I suppose from my point of view, I'd also like to look at backing up to some of the original decisions that were made about the ability to expand noise physically. Also, the notion of possibly having a separate venue, start looking at a separate venue to ultimately have a visual arts center versus a performing arts center at Noyes, or vice versa. I think that I just see that this is not really giving us much optimism or at least great expectations for the future. So I'd like to, in addition to doing all these things, like I said, I don't want to turn any of those ideas down. I think we need to look at all aspects of what is on the table now, but really take a look at what some of the other possibilities might be. And that can be a very general conversation. Obviously, we don't want people to put a lot of legwork into it, but I do think there were other ideas proposed originally, and I'd like to see some of those ideas maybe considered again. Thank you.
Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, well said, Alderman Tandem. I think those are really good comments. I have several concerns that I mentioned earlier. One is because I am ward alderman, at least of half of that street, of the effect on the very successful integration of a small, thriving business community and the expansion of Piven. most everybody knows, you spend any time on Noy Street, everything sort of shuts down at 8 o'clock. You can't buy a hot dog. You can't. Noy Street Cafe is shutting down. The daycare center, barbershop's closed. Al's Deli is closed. Everyone's closed. So it's quiet, turns into a residential area again at night. What we're proposing is something entirely different. We're proposing an economic engine that's going to change the entire character of that street and of the neighborhood. And that's what I'm concerned about. And when we first started talking about this 2 years ago, one of the very first things I mentioned to the city manager was, what happens to Talmadge Park? It's the only park, some of you may not know this, but it's the only park in the north half of the First Ward. Longfield is not a park. Kendall College will be developed. This is the only green space that exists in the First Ward north of downtown. South of downtown, we have Raymond Park and we have the lakefront, but pretty much we're all built up on the north end. So the potential expansion of parking into Talmadge Park is a huge concern for me, as is the symbiotic relationship of the business community to an expanded program there. I understand about the transit-oriented development that we're also interested in. This may not be the right place for it. But I think it's, again, going back to what Alderman Tendam says, I think it makes a lot of sense for us, and I thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your concerns, because it gives us a list to go through now that we can go through A to Z and figure out what are the questions we need to be asking, where we're going in the future with this, what happens when Piven leaves. We're going to have a building that's built out. How do we restore it back to anything that's useful or meaningful to us if another theater doesn't come in, which is unlikely that would happen. So there are some associated costs I don't think that we've considered and looked at that we really need to do. It is in my estimation, it's a Daniel Burnham building. It's one of the only Daniel Burnham buildings we have left here in Evanston, and by itself, it's worth consideration. So if this were in the middle of downtown, I'd feel much, much different about it than I do in this particular location. But I want to add to that list also the 1,000 square feet, as I mentioned before, because I think that's critical. On City Council, we've talked a lot recently about incubators for technology. This is an incubator for the arts, and it should be celebrated as an incubator for the arts. That's the way it was originally envisioned, as an incubator for the arts. I worry that we're going to be pricing some people out. We're going to be limiting the amount of space that we have to serve in that way. I see it, as I mentioned, I started to mention in my earlier comments, that this is really a crossroads for us here in Evanston of what do we want to become? Do we want to be an organic, arts-based community that really thrives by innovation in the arts and bringing new artists in and helping them grow? Or are we really going to focus on economic development and dollars? There are dollars associated with both sides. Both of them are good. But it is clearly a division in the road that we've taken, and that is what I think is worth having a larger community conversation about. So thank you all for coming tonight, and so we'll hear back from you then at the next Human Services Committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I could just add a couple of questions, and I first want to encourage and thank you all for everyone's comments this evening, that if you would like to submit your statements in writing, to do so before you leave the meeting, just so we make sure that we capture all the questions and concerns that were raised this evening. So I do encourage you to do that. Well, I just had a couple of follow-up questions. The first question that was raised from one of the residents regarding the asbestos and lead. So my question would be, is there a timeline and a dollar amount associated with the abatement of the lead and asbestos? And then also clarification, the mayor made comments and direction to you at the last city council meeting in terms of looking at the process in which tenants will be removed if that happens. And then finally, I would agree with the comments of the committee. Seems like this is something that we will have to hold in committee and direct the city manager to go back to the Tenant Association in Piven to work out a few of these details as well, come back to our committee with the answers to those questions. So I would be looking for a motion to do so.
I think there's a motion
Yeah.
Are you ready to make your motion now?
I did.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Second.
And with obtaining answers to the questions. Could I say one other thing? Thanks. I just want to encourage everyone not to put labels on people who are on the opposite point of view that you have. No one who's speaking on behalf of the artists is being an obstructionist or anti-progress, and the same goes for Piven. We're all trying to work through this, like I said, and we need to do it in a positive and collaborative manner. So if you would all just hold off on that, that would be helpful.
Well said, Alderman Fisk. We do have a motion. Has it been second? Looking for a second. Second's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. You have your directions. Thank you very much. Okay. That was just for one. For both. For both. For you combining for both. Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have any communication? All right. Looking for a motion then to adjourn. Second's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.